Welcome to Imperial Advisor episode, I want to say 17. Let's go with that. Um, and yeah, so we had the Madrid Kotei at the weekend. And we had a couple of guys there. Eoin and Baz were there. Also with us, we've got Justin and Andy, so full house. Hey all. And then after that, we're going to talk about the pack coming out tomorrow and the pack that came out last Thursday. So that's kind of the plan for the show. And I guess let's dive into Madrid. So I guess maybe to start out, Baz, you've got a post up on imperialadvisor.com website. Maybe just an overview of kind of what you saw at a high level, and then we can talk about the result in a bit of detail after that.
Yeah, sure. So massive tournament. There was over 450 players starting on the Saturday Swiss, which was absolutely amazing to see. The big turnout from Scorpion and Crane and Lion. Then the rest were roughly same, with then a poor turnout from Unicorn. So that's pretty much what we expected. I don't know what to say about it. It was held in this absolutely massive complex area. Apparently, it used to be a elevator factory, but it was really, really nice, really, really well done up. And the Asmodee guys managed to ship the Tory arch that apparently they had at one of the German conventions, Essen. Yes. I'd seen pictures of it before, and it looked like a pretty cool replica. But when I actually saw it at full size, out of like I originally thought it was paper or something, some cardboard thing they'd put together, but it was just all wood. It was absolutely massive.
Oh.
I guess you had to be there. But yeah, it was a massive amount of players, not just Spanish, obviously primarily Spanish players, but we had players from all over Europe. I don't recall seeing anyone come from the States, but maybe there were one or two.
Is it played mostly through Spanish or Spanglish or some English, or what's the language like?
There is a Spanish version of it. So there is a Spanish translation as well as a German and a French translation. So when we were there, people were playing with their Spanish copies of the cards. So myself and Owen were there to help out the judging crew, because with 450 people, you need as much help as you can get. We also had John, who's Bayushi Akai, who runs the Scorpion Clan Forum is where he's best known from. Yep. And we had Gordo, the Mantis from Saki House Brawl episode fame, yep, among other things. And so mostly it's because the guys were involved with the upcoming Kotei down in Cork. It just made sense to get them over, and I kind of tagged along. But yeah, the Spanish guys were super patient with us, so I have no Spanish whatsoever, and I think most of the leaders don't. But the Spanish guys, 90% of them speak perfect English. And those few who don't have much English were super patient with us, and we had Spanish judges on hand to help us out if needed.
Cool. And how did you find judging? Was there any tough questions? Did you know most of the answers? Was it? Because I know Owen's quite a veteran sort of judge in TO. Is it kind of more of a new experience for you, Baz?
Yeah, it's very new for me. It's not something I've done before, but. It has been a benefit for me going through all of those card pack reviews that we put up at this stage every week, and I'm looking forward to that 6 weeks ending, thank God, because I've gone through all the cards at least once. But any of the questions I had difficulty with, I had the other judges there, and I was able to go and get some help. So, there was a couple of interesting ones, but nothing that we couldn't answer.
Cool. And so, Owen, how was the weekend for you?
Yes, so long as one of them changes. The most common question we got on the weekend was shameful display. And we just would go, yes, if one of them changes. Because that was easily the most common question we had all weekend. All right. Organizationally, that event is a massive challenge. I want to give props to Alex Watkins from Asmodee and the rest of the Spanish judges and people who are helping out there, because 450 players, like if you run a tournament for 50 players is a pretty easy tournament to run, really. 150 is harder, and 450, basically every little delay just starts to multiply itself all along the way. And there were a ton of just throughput challenges on that tournament. Just for a second, we started late, and the reason we started late was we were ready to go, absolutely ready to go. Everything was ready at 9 o'clock when the doors opened at the venue. But the problem was, between there being public transport issues and people just not being able to get through the airport-style security at the front, by 10 o'clock, we had about 200 and something people ticked off a list, and we were waiting for another 250 people. And it wasn't a queuing problem at our end. It was a queuing problem to get into the venue. So the event started late because not everybody had gotten through the venue, had gotten into the venue yet. Yeah. So that was like we chopped in. Basically, it was about 11. It was just before 11 o'clock we got to launch the first round, which is not ideal, but
and that happens. The Asmodee guys, were aware that there would be some issues and had, they'd already got their pre-bookings, their pre-registration list. Really, they were just going through the numbers to see who hadn't made it and to work out the names that they could drop off the list, and to hand out the prize support and the maths and the bits and pieces. So, they were really, really well prepared. We would have had further delayed if they weren't so well prepared. It's just, from the get-go, there were logistics issues that were kind of outside the control of the tournament organizers, which was a kicker.
Yeah, and basically the time budget for the event was we were budgeting an hour 25 for each round. So that meant that in that hour 25, you would play the hour of the round, and then you had 25 minutes to finish off any games that went to time, and then print everything, check everything, maybe print standings, get people to check their standings, and then put up the pairings for the next round. Rounds took a minimum of an hour 20 to finish, because the hour is played, we call time, and then you have, in a 450 play tournament, you have about 10 to 20 tables that take 20 minutes to finish their last turn. And that is just the state of the game, unfortunately. So minimum, then, if you got everything else done, all of the results entered, everything sorted out, everything printed, all the result slips put up on the boards, we have to go check the pairings for the next round, that's a minimum of 10 minutes. It's more like 15 minutes. So we just started hemorrhaging time as that went on. Any delay at all was just, you couldn't pull it back. There was nowhere to pull it back from. So the end of round procedures currently basically make the length of a round a third to a half longer, which is killer. It's killing you.
That's if you're lucky.
To pull it back. Yeah.
You can get one player that just decides, we want to play this game out, and it's 40 minutes. And with the way the current game is, it is very epic. And when you're in the middle of a tournament and you're stuck in that game, and it's if it's, not even necessarily if it's one of the top tables, even if it's one of the low tables, if you're having a really good game, you want to play it out and you want to finish it. And the rules currently allow that. As long as no one is really dragging it out with 5-minute decisions, it does allow for it. So there's not much you can do with that.
And so 450 players, how many rounds of Swiss did that come out to?
7. Everyone who basically goes 6-1 gets through. Everyone who gets 53 tournament points makes the cut. And then from outside that cut, the top member of each clan makes it.
Okay, cool. So maybe let's just talk a bit about sort of composition. I'll try pull up, and because we saw a lot of Scorpion, a lot of Lion, a lot of Crane, not very many Unicorn, and then we obviously saw, I guess, the same thing with Scorpion doing really well in the Swiss. So I'll pull up those graphs.
Yeah.
You can tell us a little bit about that, what you saw.
I think it was 36 players qualified for day 2. So that's one of each of the clan challengers, and then a bunch of people who made the raw numbers. 11 of those were Scorpion. 11. That's a ridiculous number. So that gave them a 12% qualification rate. So they were the most represented, just squeaking about 5 ahead above the Crane, but they were still the best qualifiers. So, yeah, they were at 12%. Crab were at 9%. Lion and Phoenix both at 8%. Then Dragon and Unicorn at 6%. And obviously, you just had the one challenger coming in from the Unicorn, which was really interesting because it does suggest that right now the clan to beat to get through to the Swiss, or to get past out of the Swiss, is Scorpion. But then once you start looking at the top 16, all of a sudden things start changing. Those 11 Scorpion are down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by time you hit the top 16, and those numbers just slowly get picked away. For seeing what's happening in the game, this particular tournament has been the most interesting for me. Looking at the top 16 and some of the reports from people who've played, I think we are beginning to find situations where certain clans defeat certain decks. Yeah, so it looks like Scorpion have some poor matchups, and once they hit those matchups in the top 16, they're getting dropped. Now, I'm not entirely sure why you're only seeing that in the top 16 and you're not seeing it below. But Lion definitely seemed to be an issue. Anytime they seem to hit Lion, they seem to drop. And obviously Scorpion versus Scorpion is going to be an issue. And there are a couple in the top 16. There's 2 games where it is Scorpion versus Dragon. So yeah, Scorpion versus Lion, Scorpion versus Dragon, Scorpion, and then Scorpion Dragon, and Scorpion Crab. Lion. So there is a Scorpion Crab game, but Crab actually get taken out by the Scorpion. So Scorpion only get taken out in the top 16 by Lion and Dragon. And then as the tournament progresses, you start seeing the Lion and Dragons pair off. And it seems to sometimes go either way, but it seems to go either way. But then the Crab players, eventually we saw with Pablo winning the entire thing out, that Crab deck just takes out Lion. It just demolishes it. And Pablo hit, four Lion games to finish it out?
I think he actually won the Lion game top 32 as well.
Yeah. So yeah, in the top 16 it's Phoenix, and then it's Lion for his victory. And from looking at his write-up, I guess he was expecting Lion to be a serious contender, because he goes in and he says it straight out that he designed this deck to take out Lion. That was his intention, and it certainly paid off for him.
And so on that, Owen, I guess we talked about this a little bit with the Crab win at PAX Unplugged in Philadelphia. And I mean, you said you didn't get to look at much of the stream, and you kind of didn't have a good idea, and some people, I guess, were a little bit critical of, how you sort of expressed that. Has your sort of view changed having seen this win up close and personal about how it's gone about, or do you think the environment's changed a little bit?
Well, you got to remember, the environment has changed.
Yeah.
Your minimum two new packs in, and you've got a couple of really significant cards for the matchup. Now, Pablo was very smart about what he did. He took a look and he correctly, in my opinion, identified Lion as probably the most dangerous clan in the cut, because I think Scorpion have a tremendous transition from the Swiss into the top cut, and they immediately start to encounter difficulties with both Dragon and Lion. So I think he took a roll of the dice and said, I'll probably play more Lion than I will play Scorpion, because, hey, we don't have many options for dealing with Scorpion other just kind of solid play, but there are things you can do to hurt Lion. And he pivoted his deck and made a couple of choices which might be a little counterintuitive, but were easily the correct ones. He picked out 2 cards in the new pack that changed the complexion of the Lion Crab matchup. What they said was he pulled out Stoic Magistrate. Now, Stoic Magistrate is a card where, when defending, characters that cost 2 or less don't contribute to the conflict. Now, that is... Lion have big guys they can pull in, no problem, often making it for free with the Spirit Call. But they actually rely on a raft of really good, cheap personalities to supply the muscle to make that force unstoppable. And so because he could do that, he could put out the crab, the Stoic Magistrate, with 2 fate on him early on in the game, and then keep another one around for the whole game. It basically meant that Lion couldn't rely on their cheap guys to take a province and basically smash a province easily, and then play for greater glory and have an even bigger board next turn. You don't have that play, and when you don't have that play, they're down to the Kids of Spirit Callers, which are amazing, and the Brawler, which is amazing, but they don't have a bunch of other bodies for winning with. So very interesting from that point of view. The second card he was playing to twist the matchup in his favor was public. I keep calling it rap battle, but it's
debate, public debate,
policy debate.
Yeah.
So
right, yep.
He was playing policy debate, and the reason he's playing policy debate was that Crab have a few 3 politics guys. Crab have the box to bring you to 4 politics, and Crab play Watch Commander and the Fan, which easily brings you up to 4 or 5 politics. Because Crab pressure Dishonor, you only need to be 2 or 3 ahead. That when you policy debate, your opponent's just going to say 1 and accept the loss of the card from the hand. No one's going to go, okay, well, I'll bid 5 to win this. You're 3 ahead, I'll bid 5, you'll bid 1, and I'll give you 4 honor. If I'm pressuring you Dishonor, you're just not going to do that. So policy debate was they used a tool to strip cards out of hand. Now, how does that help against Lion? Well, it helps against Lion for one really big reason. If you can reliably strip out for greater glory from the Lion player's hand, they have no ability to have put together an overwhelming board. So what we're actually looking at is a situation where he identified, hang on, I can slow them down with Stoic Magistrate, and I can prevent them snowballing with policy debate. So he created a situation for himself where he had a really good matchup for Lion. And there's always a factor of luck in any win in the tournament, right? And you have to look at how many Lion he played along the way to see that, yeah, he definitely has the Lion matchup sorted out, and he got the Lion matchup. If he'd hit 2 or 3 Scorpion in a row, maybe he would have been just as successful. We don't actually know. But he had that Lion matchup on lock, and that was a huge factor. Now, people are saying, oh, great, so that means that Crab are top of the heap now because they'll automatically beat Lion. Well, we'll see, because that was 2 packs. The next 2 packs are coming out, and then the next 2 packs are coming out after that. And while Stoic Magistrate was massive for Crab in that tournament, Haughty Magistrate for Phoenix and the Magistrate for Lion are going to be equally useful for them in busting Crab up. So it's going to be interesting times ahead, because both of those are going to alter the complexion of those matchups. But that's my read on how he did it. He correctly identified the Lion were the biggest threat, and he then looked for a way to skew the matchup in his favor. There's been some more options generated by the first 2 packs, and that's what's happened. That's my read of it anyway.
Cool. So Andy, Justin, did you have any? I'm not sure there's much sort of online coverage of the tournament. Did you have any takeaways from what you've seen?
For me, not much personally. It was just that I was a bit shocked that so many Lion are so dense in. You see them in the top 8. They're dense in the top 8, dense in the top 4. I would say they're dominating sort of the later rounds of the cut, but then don't really go all the way. It's kind of disappointing, but then it was a good performance from Lion, so I'm pretty happy to see it. So it's solidifying the top clans again for me. Although Crab, I mean, it's really interesting. 2 Crabs in the top 16, and one of them goes all the way. It's pretty cool. I mean, I don't think I wouldn't have said Crab were that good after the 2 extra packs, but they're definitely up there apparently.
Jer points out that Lion players are always dense, but
how full always.
Has anyone surprised at kind of Crane not performing as well as expected? I mean, I think when we talked before Worlds, at least, we thought Crane was quite a few of us thought Crane was kind of at the top of the heap. So what's going to happen to them? Justin, have you any take on that?
I don't know. I think the packs that we've seen so far for Crane tend to have reinforced what they do well already, which is 2 drops, while not adding an awful lot to the rest of their arsenal. And at the same time, the pack adds the number of other clans quite significantly. I think the Phoenix have gained enormously from the first 4 packs, and certainly. I was playing in a tournament just last weekend. I faced 3 Cranes, and really none of the games was close. So what once was a very favoured matchup for Crane now seems to have switched around quite a bit. So I think it's almost a case of the Crane standing still, while everybody around them takes a step forward, and that's just very much to their detriment. I mean, Yoshi is good, but he's not as high an impact card as I thought he would necessarily be. I mean, he's still very, very good.
Or legal for that tournament.
Oh, indeed. Yeah. Okay. Well, there's that. And also with sorry. So I'm speaking about a completely different environment now as well. So that's not helping. But from what I've seen as well is that with the influx of new cards, the game has become much more aggressive and much higher paced. It was, speaking of certainly in terms of how players are building and developing their boards. I've seen, certainly again in the decks that I've seen, the average cost of characters is dropping quite a bit, and you're seeing many more broad boards as opposed to tall boards. There were several clans that did tall boards. Previously were pursued tall boards, but again, that started. I think everybody has started to spread out a bit now, and when you look at it in that context as well, Crane's characters. I mean, again, that was what Crane did before. Was they were good at broad boards, along with the Lion. Although Crane's broad boards weren't as broad as Lion's, but they were higher quality characters, and you're now seeing that play style. Start to manifest across basically across a number of clans, and because of that, then what Crane were uniquely good at has started to erode slightly. So I think it's just really a case of Crane staying where they are, or just advancing a little while other clans move forward, and just the way the game is starting to change generally in the metagame has undermined their unique position quite a bit. So.
Cool.
That said, they did have 5 going into that 36, and it's just 4 of them got knocked out during that.
Yeah.
So again, it might be something to do with the matchups and the pairings and what they're good against and what they're not good against. Just try to quickly pull it out and see what those Crane players actually did play. There's one going down to a Lion. There's one going down to a Unicorn. There's another one going down to a Lion. It's Dragon. Give me 2 seconds. Let's get to the end of this. One down to a Crab, one down to a Scorpion. Okay, yeah. So maybe not necessarily a pattern, but
yeah. I know. And so, any sort of learnings from that you're going to take on for the Kotei and Cork?
Well, I'm from running it.
Yeah.
Yeah. A couple of things with myself and Gordo and John had several extended conversations about ways that you might be able to handle some of the problems a bit better or differently, just from the point of view of experience. I think you've got to have a lot of time banked away for the event, because it's inevitably you just can't chop it back. That's the killer. Because sometimes when we'd have an issue with basically a round went really long for whatever reason, we need to repair or something, or what we do is we go, okay, well, we'll chop 5 minutes off the time between the rounds for all the rounds going forward, and by 3 rounds later we'll be back where we were or where we should be, and you can't do that. So it's just about having getting in touch with people at the venue and saying, yeah, look, we might go an hour long before we think we are, or when you're booking the venue, be like, well, it's probably going to go 2 hours longer than we're planning for it to go, and that's just an unfortunate situation. I got to look at Tome as well, FFG's software. Kind of powerful, but a little needs some minding. It's browser based, and with 450 people, and all of the windows are apparently active at one time within it for information. It's a complete memory hog. So periodically, you have to basically save the tournament metadata, close down your browser, reopen it, and it should all still be there, but you save the metadata just in case. So it's there were some interesting bits about it that we spotted.
Yeah, I did ask a few questions about that because I know Tome had come up as a criticism before, and I've certainly seen a lot of comments about it afterwards. Especially people seem to like the Lotus Pavilion as an alternative. But from talking to the guys, it actually does make sense to keep using Tome because the basic idea of it is that you still have control over your data. That as long as you're regularly making sure that you're saving everything between rounds. If anything goes wrong, you still have that and you've got that ready to go. Whereas when you're looking at a third-party provider online like Lotus Pavilion, if you're midway through a tournament and that site for some reason goes down or there's an issue, you're done. There's no way to recover from that. So until you can kind of find that balance of kind of control, that'll be a tricky one to resolve. I did think the Asmodee guys made a good move in posting all of the pairings up on Twitter. So if you're following on Twitter, you could actually just sit at your desk, find out where your pairings were, and you were good to go. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that rolls out. Obviously, Tome isn't anything. Is doing a lot more work than originally was intended to. I gather it was supposed to be for like stores to have small tournaments, but now you're doing massive things. So yeah, it'd be nice if they got to work on something that was an improvement. But I can definitely see why they're favoring using it over something that you can't necessarily control and you can't back up.
All right. Okay. So I guess we'll wrap up Madrid with that. And maybe we'll...
just one last point. There was no coverage. There was very little media beyond what I eventually got around to doing, and obviously because I was there on the site, working essentially. And God, we got up early and we left late and we stood all day. It was a lot harder than I was expecting. But Spain really needs to get a podcast. We've got two here in Ireland, and when one of the Irish guys who was actually playing at the Madrid Kotei mentioned he was Irish, someone asked what podcast he was from, because obviously we're a small country, so everyone is clearly a podcaster. But one of the other things is that if you've got a podcast or a media group, they're the ones that are going to be doing the streaming. They're the ones that are going to be setting up the video. I think it would be great if FFG and Asmodee were going to do that, but I think it's something that really the players need to get behind and get going. So I know it's going to be one of the podcasts sorting out WarpCon, and I think if the Madrid guys, if they're doing a Kotei next year, they really should want streaming, that's something that they'll need to sort out themselves. I know there was X-Wing happening on the venue, and as far as I'm aware, it was some of their X-Wing podcaster fans that were setting something up so they could actually get that streamed out. But yeah, that's the rub. If you want media coverage, you pretty much have to provide it yourself, unfortunately. But hell, I mean, it's a real shame we didn't get more, because that was the biggest tournament we've seen so far, at least in the 3-core environment. And it was seeing some of the plays and some of the decisions and seeing policy debate ripe. It was clear how instrumental it was, because it wasn't just in Crab, it was pretty much everywhere. I was seeing it being played a lot. So yeah, we did put up a couple of observations of what we saw out there, and I think there's a lot of interesting stuff appearing, and we're only 2 packs in with that. So I think there's an exciting future, and I'm certainly looking forward to WarpCon and trying out the full 6 packs.
Was there you mentioned policy debate, was that the card of the tournament for you that sort of stood out?
Yeah, easily. I would say so. It was featuring in a lot of decks. It wasn't. Oh, I called it political debate in one of the write-ups. But yeah, it's realistically rap battle. Realistically, anyone can play it, and you just need to pick on someone small. And it's not like the old days where there were dueling clans and there were clans that just could never duel. This is a card that you can always play. And as Eoin made the point, even if you're losing it, they're losing honor to do that. So, I mean, if there was a card, and Backhanded Compliment is a card that said lose 1 honor, and people were up in arms over it, although Scorpions seem to do pretty okay. But if this duel says discard a card from their hand of your choice, or make them lose 2 to 3 honor, I mean, that's stunning.
Make them give you 2 to 3 honor. So
also,
it's a double swing.
Yeah. So it was great to be there. It was great to meet the Madrid guys and the Spanish players, and there's a whole world there that we've yet to tap.
I have a random question for you guys. Was there a single victory via the honor victory condition in the whole tournament?
Not that I heard of.
And I'm pretty sure if anyone did, there would have been yelling and cheering.
Yeah.
And Eoin, any final observations from you that cards of the tournament or big surprises, or
I got to have a word with one of the court players, Colm, at it before the event. And I was going, okay, hang on. He was going, I want to make some changes to the deck, and I took a look and I said, the one card I didn't tell him to put in was Policy Debate. And I wasn't sure at that stage, because I really hadn't had a chance to play with it that much. So, but I made some changes. I've actually got an article coming about it, just in terms of fate management stuff, that we're starting to see the fate management tactics solidify in an interesting way that's making the Ring of Void a less attractive choice. And that's very interesting, because when you put one fate on your personality, you're leaving your opponent with a very obvious line of play. And we're getting to the stage where cheaper guys, 2-costers, sometimes get a fate, the ones that you want to hang around for a turn or two. Whereas the 3, 4, and 5-costers should get a minimum of 2 fate, unless they're specifically fire and forget personalities. So it's a very interesting one from that point of view. We're actually starting to see some automation of many of the choices in this game, which is good, because when you're playing 7 hours of this, it's not actually 7 hours. This could be up to 10.5 hours of this. You need to automate some of your choices so you can actually understand what's going on. So that's interesting. And we're starting to see a couple of things kind of coalesce, and the metagame starting to sort itself out, and standard tactics and plays starting to emerge. And that's very, very interesting. I also saw a ton of little minor mistakes being made by everybody consistently, which are on the list of things to avoid. But there were a ton of little ones, tons of little rules got wrong and little things done wrong and incorrectly.
Is there anything that you'd tell people to sort of to train themselves to like fix one thing?
So, if I could say one thing, please do not unrecoverably break the game state. Don't ever do anything that a judge can't undo, because when something like that happens, what is available to the judge in the organized play rules is very limited.
So what's an example?
There's no warnings in this game. Right?
Oh, wow.
There's no warnings, no verbal warnings. There's no written warnings. Do you know what the first port of call is?
DQ.
Game.
Yeah.
And this format, where you need to go 6 or 1 or better, a game loss is effectively you're out of the tournament. Right? Or it can be you're out of the tournament. Next up is a DQ. So be careful about what you're doing. Like certain things we can go, right, well, you're going to be watched for the rest of the tournament because you did something that we could reverse. But if you do something we can't reverse, you put everyone in a very tight spot. So don't do that. because most of the time I saw mistakes made by accurate. Some of them I just go, did that wrong, go back, fix that. Can't give warnings because no warnings, but what you can do is you can at least correct them. And then there was sometimes you had things where you're like, well, I guess we can't correct this.
What would be an example of that?
Very much just people doing something really, really silly, like for example, looking at your opponent's basically face down provinces. You know,
Right.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how you do that. That's not a real example.
You know,
I think that the biggest mistake that I saw was when Colm, who Eoin was talking about, made his crab into the top 32 and paired himself against a dragon instead of a lion. I think that was a real rookie move, and if he'd paired himself up against a lion player, he might have gone all the way.
Excellent. All right. Okay. So we're going to leave Madrid there, and we're going to look at the Chrysanthemum Throne.